Hello and welcome, my name is Nico Tulo and today we're gonna take a look at the classes in Black Desert Online and maybe what class you should play. This video is intended to give you a rough overview over the grind value or how good the class can grind, because grinding is, well, let's be honest, a fairly big part in this game. Also, the small scale PvP value, as in like 101, 2 versus 2-ish kind of scenario. Large scale PvP value, which is regarded as node wars and sieges, which is arguably the only endgame PvP there is. On top of that, the sustainability. So, what is your HP regeneration like? Do you have abilities that give you HP back? How much HP and tankiness do you have overall? And what do your buffs look like? Do you have a lot of defensive buffs or even team buffs, for example? And on top of that, the difficulty of the class. A lot of people will be mad about that. I'm aware of that. That's fine though. So I try to be as realistic and general as possible. And I hope you, after this video, I hope you know what you're getting yourself into. So without further ado, let's get started. Warrior. First off, the warrior. The warrior starts off with a sword and a shield, and upon reaching level 56, you get your awakening weapon, the greatsword. Warrior is regarded as a pretty weak grinder, but at the same time, an extremely good PvP class. In small scale PvP, so 101, 2 versus 2, and those, he's regarded as one of the best, in fact, because he has low risk and high reward. Large scale PvP, she shines with his steady block and super armor. On top of that, having a lot of debuffs and very high burst ability. Sustainability is pretty decent since Warrior has, as I said, a steady block, which is 360. And on top of that, lingering super armors after the buff, which means that you don't have to worry about getting CC'd most of the time. Also, his awakening buff makes him more resistant to CC, which makes it even harder to CC this class. Difficulty-wise, I would give it a 2 out of 5. Most people regard Warrior as the best starting point PvP class because easy to get into but very hard to master. Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is often regarded as a female counterpart to the Warrior, even though both her pre-awakening and her awakening, the Lancia, are pretty much completely different classes. So let's start with the grind. Grinding wise, Valkyrie starts off very, very slowly. In the beginning, Valkyrie grinding is pretty poor, one of the worst grinders in the game often regarded as. But once you reach a certain point, Valkyrie is regarded as the best grinder in high level grind spots, so keep that in mind. Small scale PvP, she outshines most classes, being versatile in every regard. Large scale PvP, high CC, high HP and tankiness make her one of the best frontline classes in the game, or probably the best frontline class in the game. Sustainability again, high defenses, high CC, well, generally a very tanky class, but by the way, every class in this game does a lot of damage, so even if Valkyrie has a lot of sustainability in HP, she still deals a load of damage, okay, to say the least. Difficulty-wise, I would rate her a little bit higher than the Warrior, but still not one of the hardest classes in the game. Ninja. Next up is the Ninja, with probably the coolest looking class in the game. First off, pre-awakening short sword and awakening katana, or often called Shura katana or something like that. I'm not quite sure what that actually means. For grinding ability, Ninja is one of the worst grinders in the game, often regarded as the worst grinder in the game. Small scale PvP though, on the other hand, he's regarded as one of the best, if not the best, 101 class. Large scale PvP can still be useful, but most of the time not really regarded as the best choice. Sustainability, he has a lot of slipperiness to him and a couple of very high HP regeneration abilities. I think it's actually only one, but it's pretty big. On top of that though, difficulty-wise, Ninja is probably the hardest class in the game, with 2 or 3 more coming later, so keep that in mind. Kunoichi. Kunoichi, as the female counterpart to Ninja, also wields a short sword in the main hand, but has a CHAKRAM in the Awakening, which is a very unique weapon. As you can see, it looks like a hula hoop blade kind of thing. Very special. Her grind ability is a little bit better than the Ninjas, but still not regarded as very good. Small scale PvP, still one of the top classes, but difficulty wise she's also very hard. Large scale PvP slightly better than the Ninja as well, since her AoE and her super armor stacking is most of the time a little bit more useful at least. Sustainability wise, she's also pretty decent. Sorceress. The Sorceress wields an amulet in the main hand, which you can barely see, so it's more like a magic melee kind of thing. And in the awakened weapon, as you can see, a scythe, which is pretty fucking cool if you ask me. Her grinding ability is actually pretty good. I might have given her 1 more point than that, but there's just so many classes that are good at grinding, so I might as well here. So she's in the middle of the field in grinding, probably a little bit better than that. Small scale PvP, mediocre. Large scale PvP, also average. Sustainability, actually below average, but now to top it off, this class is very hard to play. Same as Ninja and Tamer. So this class is very needed in sieges though, because her ultimate is a big black hole that sucks in enemies. So if you want to join a siege guild, Sorceress is definitely a class you could pick up. But other than her ultimate, the class is not that useful, so keep that in mind. Tamer. The Tamer. Well, first of all, the Tamer doesn't actually tame anything other than the pet you already have. In the background you see, it's called Hey Lang. It's like a wolf cat kind of thing. She can ride on it too, so that's like a very unique, versatile thing. If your horse is dead, you can jump on your pet and ride back to town, for example. Pre-awakening short sword, awakening bow staff, where she wields like elemental stuff. Grinding wise, she's okay because her pet can aggro more mobs with her, so that's 1 plus point. On the other hand though, her damage and her AoE is not very good, so her grinding is still subpar. Small scale PvP, she's very good, but very hard to master. So difficulty wise as well, keep that in mind. If you want to be very good in 101, you definitely have to put in work. Large scale PvP, she's regarded as one of the more useless classes, and sustainability, she's okay. She's below par again, but it's doable. Striker. Next up, the Striker, my main class. In Pre-Awaken you have a Gauntlet, and in Awaken you have a Guard Brace. Both are melee fist weapons, so the difference is not that big, but in Awakening you summon clones of yourself that attack with you, which is pretty interesting, a pretty interesting mechanic. First of all, the grind ability. One of the better grinders in the game. Probably top 5 to top 6 grinders, so you can't really do anything wrong with that. Small scale PvP also regarded as very good. Not the very top, but still one of the best. Large scale PvP the same. There's better options, but it's still one of the best classes you can pick up, so... Well, overall, you can do nothing wrong with Striker, let's say it that way. Sustainability, very high as well, and the difficulty is low at the same time. So, if you're a new player, looking for a class to get into, this is one of them. Mystic. Next up, the Mystic, the female counterpart to Striker that just came out. Pre-awakening a Gauntlet again, and awakening a CESTUS, which is again a fist weapon. So don't get too excited. She's actually summoning water dragons though. Water dragons, yes. Water dragons and awakening. That's pretty fucking cool. Grindability wise, she's at the same level as Striker. Small scale or large scale, I put her a little bit lower than Striker. The class, well, basically the awakening just came out, so this might be subject to change, but I do believe that Striker's a little bit better in those regards for now. I mean, as I said, this is subject to change, so don't take me too seriously on this one. Sustainability even higher than Striker. If there would be 6 sustainability points, I'll probably give her a 6. And difficulty-wise, she's the same as Striker. Musa. The Musa. Interesting class. Main hand weapon, a blade, and awakening weapon, a crescent blade, as you can see in the picture. Musa is regarded as one of the best grinders in the game, one of the fastest moving classes in the game at the same time, so keep that in mind. Pretty mediocre or below average for small scale PvP, same for large scale PvP, but keep in mind, Pearl Abyss, which is the developer of BDO, keeps on buffing this class over and over because it used to be the worst class in the game. So at this point in time, Musa is getting better each patch, basically. Sustainability wise is also pretty decent, and also keep in mind it's one of the fastest classes in the game, so if you don't want to fight, you can just run away. Difficulty wise also not a very hard class, so if you're a beginner, that's definitely a class you could pick up if you want to. Meiwa. Meiwa, the female counterpart to Musa, instead of using fire, she uses ice. Blade in the pre-awakening and HERISPEAR in the awakening. Grind-wise, she's a lot worse than her male counterpart, but when it comes to PvP, she outshines him a lot. Small-scale PvP, 4 out of 5, large-scale PvP, 3 out of 5. Sustainability, still not the best, but it works since you can still run away. Mobility-wise, she's basically the same as the Musa. Difficulty-wise, though, she's a little bit harder to play most of the time because her abilities have less AoE, but are more pinpointed to the targets. Wizard. Now for the class you've all been waiting for, the Wizard. Pre-awakening staff, awakening, GODR sphere, which is basically fire and water awakening. Grinding wise, one of the best classes, if not the best class in the entire game. Small scale PvP on the other hand, fairly poor, but still slightly better than his female counterpart, the Witch. Large scale PvP, Witch and Wizard are insane. So if you ever looking into Sieges and Old Wars, and you want to be as useful as possible, pick up a Wizard or a Witch. You cannot go wrong. On top of that, the sustainability is insane as well, because not only can you heal yourself with your abilities, or buff yourself, you can buff your entire team, basically, which is insane. So, awesome for our large-scale PvP, awesome for AoE damage, but at the same time, very, very easy to play. So, I mean, you cannot go wrong with this class, unless you want to go 101 only, I guess. Witch. The Witch offers you basically the same stuff as the Wizard, except for even poorer 101 capabilities. She also has a staff in pre-awakening and an add sphere in awakening, which is basically earth lightning spells. So grinding wise, the same as Wizard, large scale PvP, pretty much the same as Wizard as well. Her ranged attacks are a little bit more powerful, so sometimes I do regard her as a little bit better than Wizard when it comes to Sieges and Old Wars. The sustainability, the same, and difficulty is also fairly low. Cannot go wrong with these classes, guys. Just pick them up. Berserker. Now let's go to the Berserker, which is, in my opinion, with Valkyrie, the best class in the game. Berserker in Pre-Awakening has dual axes, and in Awakening an Iron Buster, which is basically a hand cannon. If you've ever seen Mega Man, that's basically it. Grindability, very high, not the top though. Small scale PvP, whew, this class can do a lot of things in 101s that you have never seen before, so keep a lookout on Berserkers. Large scale PvP is still a very good class because he not only offers a lot of CC, but at the same time a lot of sustainability, as you can see, and tankiness. So definitely a good class to pick up for large scale as well. Difficulty wise, it's a little harder than the other classes I had before when it comes to AoE and CC and stuff like that. But it's still a class that is semi-easy to pick up but very hard to master. Ranger. Now for the Ranger. Now this one is fairly interesting, so even if you see those low numbers in the chart, don't be too discouraged. Ranger has a longbow in Pre-Awakening, which is fairly high range, but most of the time you use your Awakening, so her Awakening is actually a sword, which is called a Camisylvia sword. It's pretty interesting actually. Pretty high paced, fast paced. Grinding wise, she's in the middle of the pack. Some grind spots she's very good, at some others she's not very good. But you can definitely make her work while grinding. Small scale PvP, she's a glass cannon. So if you get hit, you die. If you hit someone, they die, basically. Very, very interesting concept here. Also, keep in mind that this class keeps getting buffed every patch, just as Musa, because Ranger and Musa used to be the basically worst classes in the game. But Pearl Abyss is stepping in now, trying to buff them up. So this is also subject to change. Large scale PvP, most people would tell you that she's the most useless class out of the bunch, since her ranged abilities are not very powerful and her melee abilities are very, very risk involved. So right now, not very good for PvP in large scale, but that might change as well. Sustainability, I played a Ranger until level 59, and I have to tell you, there's next to none. So she doesn't even have 1 point in that one. Difficulty-wise, on the other hand, she's very hard. There's a lot of very interesting animation cancels and combos you can do, so keep that in mind if you want to pick up a Ranger. Dark Knight. Last but not least, the Dark Knight. Melee weapon, Kriegsmesser, which is actually a German word. It's basically a sword. A big sword. That's basically it. And her awakening weapon is a Vidiant. I'm also not quite sure what that is supposed to be. But it's like, I think 2 or 3 floating swords next to her. It's very, very cool. And it's very, very flashy. So if you're looking into that, it's interesting. Grinding-wise, one of the best grinding classes in the entire game. Small scale-wise, middle of the pack. Large scale-wise, I would even give her maybe 1 more point. I was torn between 3 and 4. She's pretty good in Sieges and Old Wars. Cannot go wrong with this class. Sustainability is a little bit worse and difficulty is a little bit higher than Wizard or Witch. But I would still regard this class as one of the best beginner classes along the lines of Mystic, Striker, Wizard, Witch, and, well, Dark Knight. So keep that in mind if you're new to the game. Those classes are definitely something you want to pick up. That's it from me. I hope this helped you guys out a little bit. If you have any more questions, make sure to check me out on Twitch or just write a comment down below and I'll definitely answer your questions. So have a nice day, everyone. Thank you for watching and see you guys around.